Go ahead and label the top. Unit 5, Notes 3, graphing functions. Okay, we are kind of going to combine what we learned in Notes 1 and Notes 2. So it should be pretty straightforward and just some review. So step 1 will be to choose X values. We have been given some X values in some of these problems, and then other ones later on, you will have to choose your own. And then step 2 would be to find the Y values. So that's where you plug in your X values so that you can figure out what Y equals. All right, step 3 is to just graph each ordered pair. So, like X comma Y, you put that point on your coordinate plane. And then number 4, since these are all going to be straight lines, you will connect all of your points with an arrow on each end, okay? So I will draw my line to connect my points, and then I will put arrows. That was pretty sloppy. I will put arrows on each end to show that the line can continue on. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 1. They already gave us our X values right here. So that's what we're going to be plugging in. So to get Y, we need to plug in -4 for X. So for my first one, Y equals -4 plus 5. -4 plus 5 is +1. So that's what we fill in here. My next box, we're going to plug in -1. So we have -1 plus 5, which is +4. So Y equals 4. Go ahead and try the next two on your own. So if you did the next one, you would have plugged in 0. So Y equals 0 plus 5. That gets us 5. And our last one, you would have plugged in 1. So Y equals 1 plus 5, which is 6. Okay, now that I have all of my ordered pairs, which these are ordered pairs, we just didn't write them with the parentheses and the commas, but I can. So it would be like -4, comma 1, -1, comma 4, 0, comma 5, and 1, comma 6. So I will put those points on my coordinate plane. Remember, the first number is left and right. The second number is up and down. Always start at the origin. So we have -4, 1, 2, 3, 4, up 1. There's a point. There's a point. There's a point. And there's a point. Now, if you were to have plotted these points and it wasn't going to make a straight line, that means that you had a mistake somewhere, so you need to figure out what you need to fix. Now we're going to connect these with a line and then draw arrows at the end to show that it continues on. All right, so I just want you to go ahead and pause the video and try number 2 completely on your own. So pause that video if you didn't yet. All right, you should have paused the video and tried number 2 on your own. So do that before you check the answers. So if I plug in -5, I'd get -5 minus 1, which is -6. -2 minus 1 is -3. 2 minus 1 is 1. And 4 minus 1 is 3. Be sure that you got these correct. If you didn't, you need to check to see where you went wrong. Now, when you plot these points, it should look like this. There's the first one, second one, third one, and fourth one. Again, I can tell that they are going to make a straight line, so I know that I do not have any mistakes. Put your arrows at the end. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the back. We are going to try number 11 together. Now here, we are not given any x values. Okay, so we have to pick our own x values. So I'm just going to start with 0, 0, 1, 2, and 3. That's usually pretty good choices to pick, or you can start with maybe -1, then 0, then 1, then 2. Those are typical ones to start with. All right, so let's plug each of these in. So if we have -3 minus 0, that's obviously going to be -3 still. And definitely use your calculator for these if you need to. If we have -3 minus 1, that will get us -4. If we have -3 minus 2, that is going to get us -5. And finally, if we have -3 minus 3, that will be -6. All right, now we can go ahead and plot these points on our coordinate plane. So go ahead and try that on your own first. This is 0, -3. This is 1, -4. This is 2. Oops. Go back to that screen. Sorry about that. Okay, this is 2, -5, and this is 3, -6. Once again, I can tell that they are going to make a perfect line, so I can go ahead and draw that to connect them. All right, I want you to pause the video here and completely try number 12 on your own. So pause the video so that you can practice on your own. Okay, you should have paused the video here and done this on your own. Now it's up to you which x values you wanted to pick. I'm going to switch it up a little bit and just start with -1. If you didn't do that, that is completely fine. So I'm going to have these 4 values. If you used different x values, you might have different y values, but I'm guessing you either did what I did or you started with these ones and ended up at 3. Okay, so just check to make sure the ones that we do have the same match up. So first one, if we plug in -1, I'm just going to write it up here. Y equals -4 times x plus 5. So if I plug in my first one, -1. -4 times -1 is +4. 4 plus 5 gets me 9. Okay, sorry, I had to pause there. Now go ahead and plug in 0. So I'm going to erase that -1. I'm going to plug in 0. Anything times 0 is 0. So 0 plus 5 gets me 5. Okay, get rid of that 0. Now I'm going to plug in a +1. -4 times 1 is -4. -4 plus 5 will get me a +1. And then finally, I will plug in +2. I get -8 plus 5, which is -3. Okay, use your calculator here, write out however much you need to. Now I'm going to plot. Again, you might have different ones than I do, but that's okay. Just make sure our lines look very similar and our numbers matched up for the ones that you did do the same as me. All right, so -1, 1, 2, 3. That one's gonna go off the grid a little bit. That's okay. And there are the points that I did. You may also have had another point down here, probably. Wait, I think it is right here. Either way, it's okay. All right, I'm going to draw my line to connect these. It's going to be a pretty steep line. If you need to use a ruler or something, or the edge of a paper or something to help you make it straight, you can do so. Doesn't have to be perfect. So make sure your line is pretty steep like mine. Now, if you did use a different one, it would have gone down further around there. Okay. Now let's go ahead and do number 13 together, just so that you can look at an example with a fraction. So here we have 1/4 times x minus 2. Anytime you are given a fraction, yes, you can turn this into a decimal, that's completely fine. But when I pick my x values, I'm going to pick those wisely. Let me show you what I mean. So I will start at 0, just because when I multiply here, 1/4 times 0 will get me 0. So it's going to be pretty simple. So that one, your answer for y would just be -2, right? 0 minus 2 is -2. Now my other x values, I don't want to really have to deal with fractions and decimals. So I'm going to pick multiples of whatever that denominator is. So my denominator is 4. So I'm going to pick multiples of 4. So I have 0, 4, 8, 12. And you'll see why we did this if you don't already. So when I multiply these fractions, so my first part is 1/4 x, and then yes, you still have to minus 2. But just for the 1/4 times x part, let's see what happens here. So if I have 1/4 times 4, since I picked 4, 1/4 times 8, and 1/4 times 12, what's going to happen when I do these fractions? Well, I can put them all over 1, so I can multiply them together. Now, when I multiply these, I multiply straight across, right? So on top, I have 1 times 4, bottom, 4 times 1. On top, I have 8 times 1, 4 times 1. On top, I have 12 times 1, 4 times 1. Okay? Now you see when you get these that these fractions will actually divide to become whole numbers. What is 4 divided by 4? That's just 1. Oops, that's not your answer, sorry. But that is just 1. What's 8 divided by 4? That gets me 2. And what is 12 divided by 4? That gets me 3. So now I got rid of my fractions. All right, now I do have to do the rest of the problem, which was to subtract 2. So I have to do 1 minus 2, 2 minus 2, 3 minus 2, right? Don't forget about the rest of the equation. So my y value here is -1, 0, and 1. Okay, now you could go ahead and plot these points. It should look something like this. And then my other point would be somewhere over there in this area, but that's okay. All right, go ahead and get your homework and get started on that.